going on, guys? Junior's Fishing Company with a little finesse, smallmouth, largemouth too, maybe even walleye, but primarily smallmouth jig today. I've got a 1/5 ounce Z-Man Weedless Pro Shrooms Ned Rig jig head. That's a mouthful, but basically a 1/5 ounce Ned rig that's weedless. Nice 2-aught hook on here. It's a really heavy duty hook, which I really like. It's not going to bend out on anything. These Z-Man products, I mean, these are a 1/10 of an ounce, 1/6 of an ounce, 1/3 of an ounce. I mean, I don't know what Z-Man's doing if, suckers like me are just buying up this stuff. But it actually is a pretty good weight. 1/5 ounce, I really, really liked it. This is about as simple of a bait as you can get. I have a red marabou feather on the back, and I have 2 black on the front. I tied with 210 Danvilles red. It's a little bit darker of a red now because there's head cement on it. But, I mean, this bait is barely 3 inches. Really small, compact. When this marabou gets wet, this bait is going to be really thin. So it's basically kind of like a bloody leech, right? But it's the water temp, here in Minnesota, when it's been warm. I mean, you'll have sometimes at the end of the day, the water temps in the mid-80s, which up here it might as well, be a hot tub. So I thought I would tie up a couple, finesse rigs and stuff like that. 1/5 ounce Z-Man Ned rig. Let's tie it up. All right, so I've got my 210 red. And you could, for sure, downsize this thread to 140. This was spooled up with 210. I'm not worried about building up too much or anything like that. Really, you just kind of have to decide how far you want this marabou to sit back. I don't want it sitting back too far. I was pretty picky about the marabou that I chose for this. It's only 3 feathers, so it's going to be super thin, but I wanted it to be about a hook shank about a shank and a half in length, just because I want it sticking out enough where it's going to have some movement, but I don't want it to be super long where fish are going to bite the tip of this bait without getting the hook, because I don't want to have to put a trailer on it. You could put a rattle on here for sure. It wouldn't mess with anything too much. I'm going to actually go pretty far back on this hook. I can easily fit those 3 feathers right here, but I want to space them out a little bit. I might have to end up wrapping them kind of tight up by the head, which is fine because it's just going to build a little bit of a thicker kind of collar, I guess you could call it. But I don't want this bait to be some bulky big thing. I could easily grab 8 marabou feathers and make this thing just absurdly big. But I'm really not wanting to do that. I need some really, really small finesse things without, grabbing a soft plastic or whatever. So I'm just going to dab a little bit of water on my fingers just to get that marabou kind of following along with what I want it to do. And I can grab my hackle pliers. I have 2 different hackle pliers. One of them is kind of like the classic push one. I don't use this one a ton because I usually have a bunch of marabou that I wrap, and I'm looking for my bodkin. I'll just grab this one. And this bodkin does not work very well when you're using multiple feathers because it just doesn't have kind of the grip to do that. So I usually err for the other ones I've got, the big pinch ones that you open up the mouth. Those ones work really well when you need a lot of force, but this will do just fine. So I'm just going to get these wrapped around, and I wrapped really close for those first couple, and now I can really start working my way up. It's a 1/10 of an inch, but I just want it. I want a little bit of a red tail here, and I want to make sure that this red is going to stick out the back of this bait without this black marabou. That black's going to cover it up quite a bit, which is fine. I mean, I'm putting black over it, so it should cover it a little bit. And I'm just going to get this stem kind of tied off here. It's going to cover it a little bit, or a lot. It's going to stick out a little bit. I just want a little bit of red in this. And now I'm going to switch to my black, and I still have plenty of room. I could just kind of double up these black feathers and do kind of spiraled wraps. But again, if I get really close to that head with this one, then that last feather I use can just kind of get packed in by that head, which wouldn't be such a bad thing if I end up having a little bit of a bulkier collar on this. So now I'll just bend this back. This is, if you're just starting out in fly tying or using marabou, this is kind of the perfect one to start with. You're not using multiple feathers, you're not wrapping multiple feathers, you're not doing anything like that. So this would be a pretty nice one to start with. I've done a video, I can maybe even post it in the description below, of soaking these feathers before you put them on to a bait, because they do bleed. But with this kind of color combo, if this black bleeds into this red, you're never gonna know. You really want to be careful with the bleeding of those colors. Like if this was black and white, or red and white, or something like that, blue and white, or even like black and gray, a dark color with a really light color, blue and chartreuse, or I'm just making things up now. But if you're going to do something like that, you're going to want to soak those feathers just to get kind of that initial dye out, just because those colors will bleed together. And if you don't want them to bleed together, then you're going to want to soak them for a little bit. But these aren't going to necessarily be too bad if they end up. So I'm just doing pretty tight wraps here. And then this should be my last one. I'm kind of holding that little hackle pliers, the mouths closed, because again, this doesn't pinch super hard, but it's nice having this little finger trap in there. I do really like these hackle pliers, but the $6 pinch ones, I mean, the bite on these is way stronger than what these are, and they're a third of the price or something like that. I can't remember how much these were, but they're really I do like them. So this last one, I'm just going to come here, and I do have a little bit of room, but I'm going to end up packing it in pretty tight. I just want to make sure these feathers slip out. So you're going to want to make sure that you're getting some nice wraps on there. Maybe I'll even kind of double that back. And when I pushed back this weed guard, there's a little bit of a metal bump that I'm gonna have to be careful for. It'll split this 210. It'll cut it pretty quick, even with just a little bit of pressure. So I'm gonna need to be a little bit careful of that. Just gonna push back these, and you can see there's gonna be just a little bit of red right at the end. Again, I was pretty picky about the feathers that I chose for this, because you could quickly grab some short red ones and think, all right, it's going to be a shorter bait, and then you grab your black, and they're 2.5 inch fibers, and you end up having a longer bait than you were planning on anyway. So I'll get these just wrapped. I'm just going to do tight wraps. I'll have plenty of room This isn't some giant dubbing loop that I'm nervous about hitting this head. I'm just going to get there when I get there, and then I'll just pack it in whenever I need to start doing that. Just a few wraps. Again, just 3 feathers. Nothing at all. It's going to appear to be a big bait because this marabou is so fluffy. But in all reality, when this bait is wet, it is going to be about as thin as the hook shank. It's just going to have a little bit of movement. This marabou just, I mean, you're just going to twitch this bait in the water and it's going to move. Something like a leech or any kind of aquatic invertebrate or vertebrate. Oh, I lost my... See, those hackle pliers just don't... We're alright. They just don't stick that stem very well. But that's alright. I had enough wraps on there where I'll just finish it off with my hands. I gotta just find my stem because I don't want to grab all of that, those fibers. And I'll just... Now don't let go here. You can... This is why you have water next to you. When you're doing marabou, I can just get everything wet, get it out of my way, and I'll just tie off here. I'll just end up tying off here. A couple fibers will be left over, but that's not the end of the world. And I'll just wiggle my way through maybe 3 good wraps, and then I can kind of come back. I'm going to get that stem as close to that as I can, because that stem, those stems can be pretty wicked. So I'm going to get this whip finished off, we'll get some head cement on, and that's going to be it. Alright, so there you have it, a little 1/5 ounce. This bait ended up being a little bit less, when I measure it like this, dry-ish, it's a little bit less, right around 3 inches, probably like 2 7/8. But when it's wet, this is going to be a little bit longer. It always looks a little bit shorter when it's dry just because it's kind of puffy, right? Until when it gets straight, it'll get a little bit longer. Z-Man Ned Brig head, simple black, little bit of red. I ended up building a little bit of a collar there just because I wanted to cover up that stem, and it ended up getting kind of big, but that's just the way it goes. Junior's Fishing Company. Like and subscribe, drop some comments below. It's hot, water's hot, fish are deep. Time to finesse it up. We'll see you in the next one.